Good morning, Democrats. Good morning. All right, much better. Is it too loud? Yes. It's better now. All right, how about I stand further away? Okay, sorry, my voice carries. All right, so welcome to our March breakfast. And first up front, I want to thank the wonderful Bob and company for serving. And every time I think it can't get better, it does. Real short, some housekeeping. As some of you who've been here before know that the bathrooms, if you need to get to them, are in the hallway to the main lobby and the elevator up to the second floor. They're right when you step out of the elevator. Sorry, we don't have something a little closer, but we're Democrats for the poor, so we didn't get the fancy suite of the bathroom. So we're just happy we have this. Couple of things I wanted to cover in the morning announcements are that we have had phenomenal success this year in getting candidates running for office. We managed to have a candidate for every open seat except for DA and clerk of courts. So, and we all know nobody wants to run against Roxanne and Phil's Bill. So nobody's really unhappy with him. So we feel great about that because that means we have 3 House races, a Senate race, 2 different school board races, county commission race, and we have candidates in every single one. So I see some of my candidates here in the audience, so real quick, if I could get you to stand up and just let's recognize you. He's running for county commissioner. He's running for Cabarrus County School Board. Cabarrus, who is running for Kannapolis School Board. Gail Young, who is one of our candidates who is in the District 83 race to take on Pittman. Rogers, who's running for sheriff. Yeah. And I see Scott Huffman, who is running for District 8. He's running in a race in one of our. And then way back in the back, I see Mark Teagle, who's also running for sheriff. So there's there's Derek McCullers, who's also running for Cabarrus County Board of Elections. And Horace Sandback, who's running for Cabarrus County Commissioner. Cabarrus County. So that's the no, I'm getting there.
Oh, you're getting there, all right.
I'm getting there. Y'all hold the horses. You're a horseman, you already know that. All right. So, a couple of things I need to cover is the wonderful and amazing artist Regina Burchett, who's right here up front. There's Regina. Everybody look. Painting on the wall. She has donated this painting to be raffled off. Raffle tickets are $5 each. You can buy them today from Mary, or you can buy them online. And we're going to raffle that off in I think June at the breakfast. And Regina's artwork goes for quite a pretty penny, so buy tickets. You'll get a good deal. We also have the Intimidators Baseball Fundraiser Barbecue with fireworks coming up on Saturday, May 19th. You can purchase the tickets online. They're $30. We hope that all of y'all will come and attend that. We had a great time last time, even though we were rained out. We wanted to play slip and slide in the baseball field, and they wouldn't let us. Though we did have one guy tell us if we would have came to him, he would have let us do it. Oh, well, it's too late. So, would have been fun. And we, we're all about fun. Because life has a little too much no fun lately. So, also out front, where's Ira? I'm going to let Ira explain to you she's going to explain to everybody who she didn't catch on the way in about what she's raffling off.
Okay, here I am again. I'm raffling off a 90-minute facial that is, designed with whoever's in my chair, so it's totally specific to whether your skin type, skin condition, your goals are. I always throw in a little bit of a foot massage, so it's totally relaxing and a rejuvenating experience. So far, we've raised $140 for the Democratic Party with our raffle today. So please, let's make it 200 because we want to make America cute again. Make America cute again. And you can buy.
And we take credit cards. So no excuses. Andrew, where you at? Come on up here. Aisha Dew sent her regrets this morning. She was not going to be able to join us. Something else had come up. But as you guys know, our headliner, Braxton, is here. So just want to let you guys know that. And we'll let Andrew go ahead and cover some precinct organizing announcements.
Hello, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Andrew McDowell, first vice chair of organizing here. But if you've been here before, I'm sure you've heard me talk before. So I just wanted to cover real quick that we did a really great job of organizing precincts at our cluster precinct organizing meeting. We've got a couple of new precincts organized, and we also have a couple that still need some help. So I'm just going to rattle off some precincts real quick, and I'm going to say whether they're unorganized or whether they're organized and still need to hold a meeting. And if you happen to go to that precinct, or you know somebody who does, please get back to me and let me know if you can help. So, Harrisburg Lions Club, we are still trying to get it organized, so we need 5 folks to come together from that precinct. Concord Fire Station number 7. J.M. Robinson High School is organized but needs to hold an annual meeting. Weinkauf Elementary School needs to hold an annual meeting. 0404 is unorganized. 0405 is being managed by an organizer but still needs to hold a meeting and organize for the first time. Cabarrus Shrine Club in Kannapolis is unorganized. Northwest Cabarrus High School in Kannapolis is unorganized. Coltrane Webb Elementary School is organized but is yet to hold a meeting. Concord High School is organized but is yet to successfully hold a meeting. Cooperative Extension Office in Concord is unorganized. Wolf Meadow Elementary School is organized but needs to hold an annual meeting. Central Cabarrus High School is unorganized. Concord Middle School is organizing. Reimer Fire Station is unorganized, and Georgeville Fire Station is unorganized. And All Saints Episcopal Church is in the process of being organized. We've got 2 or 3 folks, we need some more. And 1202 Ann Street Methodist Church needs some more folks as well. So if you live in any of those precincts, or you know anybody who does, just come find me and have a chat with me if you would. Or I will be here all day Monday. So, just a couple other points. We did reschedule our county convention for April 21st, still 10 a.m. at the Kannapolis City Hall, to make way for the march that many of us will be attending in Charlotte on the 23rd of March. Excuse me, 24th. I was reading 23rd here, got confused.
24th is the date, sorry? What's the new date? What's the new
The
date?
new date is April 21st at 10 a.m. It's a Saturday, still at the Kannapolis City Hall. Also, the Young Democrats are having their annual organizing meeting here next Saturday, March 10th, from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. So if you know anyone aged 36 or younger, we would really like to have a great turnout for the Young Democrats. This is very key to us continuing to build and expand our base towards, towards 2020. So it takes time to get all of our organizations going, but we know that the Young Democrats, because they are our future, are very important to our continued growth. And Gotcha. Okay, so one other final thing, if you were involved with precinct organizing, Mr. Eric Olson, standing there in the back, had spoken to everybody about how to set up your precinct Facebook page. If you have that done, you can get with him to make sure it's linked from the website. And if you're having any issues getting that created, you can reach out to Eric either now in person or by sending an email to media@cabarrusstems.org. And if you have any questions about any of that, you know where to find me. And I am here at the office from 12 to 9 p.m. every Monday, including this Monday. Thanks for coming.
A couple other things I forgot. The new newsletters are in the bin over there on the wall for this month, so make sure you grab one. The other thing that I wanted to make sure we addressed is the Kannapolis School Board election is on a different cycle than the rest of the elections. It occurs on the day of the primary. So they've got a hit the ground hard run. So if you're interested in helping get them elected, we very much appreciate it. The party is doing fundraisers, and so far we've got $360 to go ahead and try to get in front of getting them signs so that they can focus on campaigning and helping them out. Why I think Kannapolis School Board is so important is because when we run the models, we run the numbers, and we look at the data, that is the most favorable district for Democrats. As in, if I look at the 50% mark of likely voters, we have like a 2,000 vote advantage. And it just gets better. So, it's a good seat for Democrats to be running for. Now, school boards are nonpartisan, but you do have the advantage of, that it is a blue wave year. So they're going to need a lot of help. We've already got somebody who has stepped up and is working as their campaign manager, and I got to say, she hit the ground running herself. We do have a shortage of campaign managers. That's a statewide problem. So if you know anybody who is a cat herder with excellent project management type skills, or is just a great natural organizer, send them to me. I will train you. And we have weekly meetings to make sure everybody is on task. So I hear people snickering. Is somebody a cat herder? I'm looking around the room to remember. I know who you are. I will hunt you down. So that's the other couple of things I wanted to ask you guys. If you want to donate to those guys running in Kannapolis, there's a link on our Facebook page. Just go on there and you can donate your Act Blue. If you want to make a specific donation today, Janet right here, I'm sure would be happy to take it off your hands. And like I said, we're going to need volunteers for Get Out the Vote efforts here at the headquarters to do phone banking. And if you haven't been here for our phone banking, it is so easy. You just put a put a headset on, sit down in front of the laptop, put the link in, and dial the number, and you just read the script. So that's the other housekeeping I forgot. See, I thought I had enough caffeine this morning. Bob offered me more. I should have took him up on it. All right, so I have one thing. I do have an announcement to make. So from the beginning, Dean has been involved with this party. He knocked a lot of doors and he helped us a lot. And the short story is that the state wants someone in every district, and we achieve that. All 120 districts and all 50 Senate districts are uncontested, or not uncontested, they're contested by Democratic race. And so that was a big accomplishment. So I'm going to let Mr. Dean come up here to tell you a story. He's a great storyteller. His claim to fame before this was when he was canvassing for Diamond. He talked to the mayor of Harrisburg and his wife, who were Republicans, who voted for Diamond. So I think his new story tops that. So I'm going to let Dean come on up here and tell that story. And real quick before he does, you may have saw in the filings that our wonderful contributor out here in the hall, Karen Webster, was filed as running in District 67. Karen is running until the primary is over. And Dean's going to explain why to you. But should anything happen where she'd have to continue to run, we've already got our campaign signs figured out. There's a Karen Webster because leave is leave up. Okay? So, but she's just on paper because they called me at 7 o'clock at night and they wanted somebody on the ballot right then and there. And I'll let Dean tell you the rest of the story. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dean Kelsey.
Good morning. I know I've met a lot of you. Before I tell you my little story, I will have to tell you, I need 2,103 signatures on my petition to get onto the ballot as an unaffiliated candidate. Yes, I'm unaffiliated, but yes, I have the backing of the Democratic Party, and now I have the backing of the governor of the state as well, because he called me. What happened was, I met with Dawn and Andrew, who's already spoke to us, is responsible for me being in this race. He actually tackled me in the parking lot and forced me to sign some documentation. So I said, yes, I'll run. But it was my understanding that I was going to run unless a Democrat stepped up to run. And through weeks of conversations with Steve and with Andrew and Dawn, everything was progressing toward me running as an independent with the backing of the Democratic Party. The reason one of the main reasons I'm running as a unaffiliated in this election is, most of you know that the state has done a tremendous gerrymandering job of districts. The district that I'm in is District 67, which used to be all of Montgomery County and all of Stanley County, and was owned by Justin Burr, who is the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. He's probably the #3 Republican in the state. He lost his home county in the last election. So they gerrymandered it, so they got him out of Montgomery County, and he kept Stanley County, and he took most of Cabarrus County, or Southern Cabarrus. So the reason that all that happened is the last time Stanley County voted for a Democrat was Harry Truman in 1944. So it's a little bit of an uphill battle. So we decided that I would run as unaffiliated so that I wasn't flying the donkey flag in people's faces from getting them offended. At the 11th hour, I get a message from Dawn, hey, there's been a development, can you call me? Well, I'm ex-Navy, and whenever the boss calls you and says there's been a development, you can bet it's not a raise. So I called her back, and she said, the state would like to put a Democrat in your district, but I've told them that I will not do it unless you're okay with it. I said, I'm not okay with it. I said, I'm already behind the 8 ball. I don't want them pushing the ball back over my head. She says, fine, that's what we'll do. Shortly thereafter, I get a call from somebody in the state who tells me, hi, Dean, I'm so-and-so with the state of North Carolina Democratic Party. Just wanted to let you know we're going to be running a Democrat in your district, but don't worry, we still want you. I said, no. And we kind of went down this road where I think we had, what, 5 or 6 of us on the conference call. And this one gentleman kept telling me, this is very important to the governor that we have a Democrat in every state. It's very important to the governor. It's very important to the governor. So after about the 5th or 6th time that he played the governor card, I decided to call his bluff and said, well, Have the governor call me. I thought he was bluffing. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. It was the governor. I'm sitting, I think my wife and I were watching Young Victoria on Netflix, right? And the phone rings, and I said, it says no caller ID. It was different than the normal unidentified caller. And I said, you don't think this is, and she says, answer it. I answered the phone. I said, this is Dean Kelsey, may I help you? He says, Dean? I said, yes. This is Roy Cooper. So, my new best friend and I spent the next half hour on the phone. He explained to me why he wanted me on the ballot. He got to know me a little bit. I got to know him a little bit. He promised me all kinds of support in a difficult political way because the next day none of it materialized. But at any rate, I have gotten a couple of calls from folks in his office now. You know, the number one thing that I asked him for was money, which he promptly said no. The next thing I asked him for was a campaign manager, which he promptly said no. The next thing I asked him for was a list of his campaign donors in Stanley and Cabarrus County, which he said, we might be able to do that. And I said, well, can you write a letter to those folks telling them who I am and why you support me? And, well, we might be able to do that. So I got 2 no's and 2 maybes. So I think, knock on wood, I'm going somewhere. But the main thing here is, folks, I'm running in District 67 against the 3rd most powerful Republican in this state. I need some help. And this morning, the biggest help that you can give me, besides money, is the signature on the petitions that are being passed around. Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that it has to be from your district?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But we'll let the state figure that out, because if you're not in my district, don't worry about lining it out or anything else. I've talked to, and I have to work with the board elections in the state, in Cabarrus County, and in Stanley County. Which, if you've never dealt with them before, they're amazingly polite, wonderfully helpful people that about 50% of them know what they're doing. So, it's been interesting. So that's my story. So, but again, if you can get, there are a couple of petitions floating around here. If you're in District 67, I would certainly appreciate your signing that petition for me. Right now, on the preliminary audit, I need 2,103 signatures to get on the ballot, and I would sincerely appreciate your support. Thanks.
And he has to have those petitions by the day of the primary, which is roughly 9 weeks away. So, if anybody would like to volunteer to help Dean collect those signatures, please see Dean, because it's going to require going out and talking to a lot of people and knocking a lot of doors. And those signatures are just registered voters. They don't have to be Democrats, they're just registered voters. And they have to be in the district. So, I think he's already got some former Trump voters who signed up. Wow. Yeah, you know the old saying, horse trader? He literally is. So today our headline speaker I'm very excited about because before today Braxton never met me and I never met him, but he was very special to me. 2016 was a roller coaster of a year. I remember in the late summer being with my kid and other people and adults out chasing Pokemon. And the part about it that was great is for the first time that I could remember since being a small child, the parks were full of people. And they were talking to each other and laughing, and it didn't matter. I mean, I remember sitting up at Romero Reardon, and there was a lady in a hijab sitting next to an Asian mother, and they were sitting there, you know, discussing their kids who were running around chasing Pokemon. And then, of course, you know, one person would go, oh my God, there's a such and such over there, and the whole park would run in that direction, about 300 people. So, and then of course you didn't hear that, you still ran in that direction, because if they were running that way, there must be something good there. So it was like this amazing summer that, you know, people were out and people were talking and people were connecting, and all because of a stupid game. And it was like, wow, this is great, this is amazing. And then it was shattered this fall came forward. And The thing that shattered it was the shooting of Keith Lamont Scott, who was an unarmed man, or I think he had a gun, but at the time he was not, they didn't think he was, but it was a shooting and it wasn't necessarily a good shooting or handled in a very good way. And it erupted into, the first night, a considerable amount of violence and upheaval, but it brought about a movement of people who said, never enough. This is just not enough, never again. And I sat and watched it, and I said, I want to go down there and sing. And Mark said to me, are you nuts? And I'm like, yeah, but what's new? So we went down there, me telling him we were going to see. And we went, stood up there off Tryon Street, and when Mark started coming through, we were taking pictures. I looked at him and started walking. I said, where are you going? I said, I'm marching. And he says, are you crazy? I said, look, I'm marching. You can come along or you can stand here. Either way, I know where the car is. So he thought I was crazy, but he didn't want to stand by himself, so he followed me along. And we marched, and it was amazing. And we shouted, you know, no justice, no peace. Whose streets? Our streets. Released the video. And it was an amazing experience. And I've always been a rabble-rouser, so it was not my first political action. Not in Charlotte either. But it touched me, the degree of fellowship, compassion, empathy, anger, love, you know, all of these emotions in the crowds from all of these people. And so, then social media started. And everything is that step you take. That first step you decide that is going to be the change, that you're going to be part of the change. And I look back in hindsight and I realize now that after I had marched, a number of days later when I got angry at what I was reading on social media, that was my first step that started me on the path here. So I went and hunted through Facebook and found the post I threw up, which ended up getting me sucked into a bunch of forums that I'm still on. But it's a little bit long, but not too long, but I'm going to read it to you guys because it's relevant. And it's also why Braxton is so important to me. Look at those thugs. White thugs, thugs hugging National Guard, thugs in khakis with backpacks, thug children, thug college students, thug professionals. Incidentally, I find the word thug offensive as it's become a code word for black to some. People armchair quarterbacking. You don't know the state, you don't know the city, you don't know these people. You don't pay attention to how twice the state has tried to interfere with the black community's right to vote and been deemed racist by a federal court. And they're still fighting to keep their racist voting laws. You don't understand what it means to find out you've lost your rights to equal representation because your state has racially gerrymandered districts to limit the power of your vote. And 3 times the federal court has told the state to stop, and they keep right on. You are not that parent that worries about your children going to school in trailers without teachers and supplies and working bathrooms while affluent neighborhoods get brand new schools your child will never attend. You don't have to go to city council meetings and try to argue to keep a medical waste incinerator or garbage transfer station out of your neighborhood because they can't put those in white neighborhoods. You did not lose your college savings account tax credit and earned income tax credit to offset tax breaks for luxury boats and cars. You did not lose your housing to make way for luxury apartments that the rent starts at $1,000 a month for 400 square feet. You did not live in a state that has passed a law to legalize discrimination and made it illegal to sue in your state for discrimination. It's HB2, y'all.
Yeah.
You do not live in a state that made it illegal for cities and towns to raise your pay to a living wage so you can provide better for your family while serving your community. You didn't lose access to health care because your state refused Medicaid expansion and you now make too much for Medicaid and not enough to afford the ACA. You don't live with knowing in your city you're 28 times more likely to be arrested for something that a white person just gets a citation for. And all of this is in the shadows of tall buildings of two of the wealthiest corporations in the United States. You did not see the videos of people in those luxury apartments throwing things out the windows at protesters before things got out of control and windows of those buildings started getting broken. You did not see the young white man calling people the N-word bolstered by police presence. All you saw was a black man who got fed up and shamed him by taking his pants, and God bless him. You did not see the riot gear, gas mask-clad police lines boxing protesters on Wednesday night in front of a luxury hotel, shooting rubber bullets into the crowd that caused violence to erupt, or the blood on the ground of the young man who lost his life in those moments when the fight or flight kicked in. But mostly what you did not see were the affluent white college kids, clergy, affluent people, and respected, well-known citizens walking with the protesters. The average people stopping and hugging the police. The people of the community getting in the middle of escalations, urging for calmer heads and talking both sides down. The white police captain out walking with the black preacher, working jointly to listen to both sides. The circle of diversity, young and old, holding hands in front of the police station, because that does not fit the narrative they're trying to sell. And the media loves violence. Were there isolated incidents of looting, vandalism, and violence? Yes. Were they wrong? Yes. Is there any excuse for it? No. But you're not here. This is not your city. This is not your state. You have not watched the systematic marginalization of the black community for decades building up in the pressure cooker. I condemn violence, but I have deep admiration for those who, without violence, have for 3 days marched in the shadow of extreme wealth to try to make their voices heard and start the conversations that need to be had. And that's what I posted on social media because that's how I felt. That was my first step because that's what I saw. So, looks like my laptop shut off. Mark, let's start. These are pictures that we took, probably 2/3 of them. So I want everybody to see what we saw. Some of these are pictures we got from other people. So somebody else took the steps those days and started down the road to be the change. And when we were sitting here watching the election totals coming in for Diamond last November, we were flipping over going, check the Charlotte totals, check the Charlotte totals, check the Charlotte totals. And we went nuts when we saw that Braxton had won. Because he walked the walk. And like the old remake of the song says, silence like the cancer grows. We've been silent too long, and we got a cancer. And this is everywhere. It wasn't just Charlotte, it's everywhere every day, continues on, and it's getting worse under the rhetoric of the current administration. So, be the change. And at that, ladies and gentlemen, I have the utmost pride, and I am humble to introduce Mr. Braxton Winston.
Thank you. It's Dawn. Thank you, Cabarrus, Democrats, for having me. My name is Charlotte City Councilman Braxton Winston, and I'm very proud to be here this morning. You have to excuse me a little bit. I had my whole spiel kind of thought out, but that honestly caught me a little bit by surprise. And I would be lying if I didn't tell you I feel a bit emotional right now. That picture, that first picture, where I'm standing in front of the police, it represents a lot. It represents a lot. But I have a lot of pride, and it has a lot of effect on a lot of people. I am very cognizant of the symbolism that people feel when they see it. But it's hard because that picture also represents the worst night of my life. You know, I didn't know there was cameras or anything like that. You know, it was just, well, Concord and Cabarrus County actually plays a special role in this whole process. As Dawn was saying, 2016 was a strange year. I remember playing a lot of Pokemon Go that year as well. Particularly a lot of times up here, my 9 to 5, I work in entertainment production. I'm a union stagehand, I'm a union man. But stagehand work is in a certain genre, a certain part of production. Generally, it's in theaters where we're backstage, we set up all the lights and sounds and scenery and costumes that go with a Broadway show or a rock and roll concert. I'm a camera operator. I run a camera for the Charlotte Hornets. I do a lot of sports television. There's but so far you can go in that world. And I was always trying to break into the film and TV business, and we know the politics behind that. And we were once a burgeoning, emerging place for that industry to grow, and people, Hollywood love doing business here in North Carolina, but couple of years ago, specifically under Governor McCrory, and when Tom Tillis ran for Senate, they ran to make North Carolina one of the least unionized state in the nation. They pretty much succeeded in that. They drove away the movie industry, which is it involves a lot of union labor. They did that by doing away with the film tax incentive, which I think is actually a Republican ideal. You have lower corporate tax rates to spur business growth, and it worked here in North Carolina. But they drove that away, and they didn't get rid of it completely. There was a very small tax incentive. But the effect of that was the majority of the work left, and so a lot of the workers who weren't just breaking in, but were surviving off of it, had to leave the state. So when Shots Fired, a Fox TV miniseries, decided to come, there was an opportunity for me to find my way into this industry, strange enough. And I spent most of 2016 on the sets of Shots Fired. It was a 10 series, episodic. Shot a lot all over the greater Charlotte region. Spent a lot of time here in Concord, in Cabarrus County at large. A lot of times I was a grip, so we would set up the scene, and they would shoot for 4 hours, and I was sitting on the back of the truck playing Pokemon Go. But it was crazy because Shots Fired, what it was a 10-show episodic set in a small town in North Carolina, where there's a cop killing. This cop kills an unarmed black man, and it uncovers a bunch of underlying corruption within the sheriff's department, within the local government. There's a riot that we shot. I remember last night, it was one of those scenes where they had the big old MCAT tanks drive through, and 2016 was already there was a collective feeling of anger at what is going on around us, whether it be with police killings, the federal election, or the elections of 2016. But I just remember seeing all that stuff. It's like, wow, what if this happened here? I've never seen an impact on the streets and that type of force. That show ended in August of 2016, and it was a good check for several months, but it was gone, so I had to get back to my regular grind. I was doing more stagehand work I was coaching. Actually, on the day of September 20th, 2016, I was up at Cannon School, right up the street, coaching the middle school football game. I had a gig that night. We had a show in the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, and I had to get back from football game, get back home for a few hours. My mother was in town for my daughter's 3rd birthday. And she was leaving back to Brooklyn the next morning, so I was like, let me get home so I could spend some time with her. I stopped after I left. We won the football game that day. There's nothing like winning a football game, regardless if you're a player, coach, fan, parent, whatever. So I was on a high, and I stopped over at the BJ's off Concord Mills Boulevard to get some gas, and a couple of friends of mine from college were in a group chat, and they said, CMPD had killed a man. And I looked at the map. I was right here. I live over here in the Noda area of Charlotte. Old Concord Road, where he was killed, was right there. And it was kind of on my way home. I always like driving down 85. I'll take side roads whenever I can. So I was like, this has never happened before. So close in vicinity, so close in time, proximity to me. So I've never been one to believe I just need to see some things for myself at times. So I decided to take a look and observe. And if I wasn't in Concord on that day, probably would be standing in front of you right now. When I got to the scene, you know, as Dawn said, I mean, there was anger. I thought there was legitimate gripes against our government and the leadership that was being shown. And the people wanted answers. They wanted their voices to be heard. And they knew if they had demanded now, in the present time, there was not going to be a tomorrow to ask for it. It would, to this day, a lot of people don't know in Charlotte about that first night on Old Concord Road. They think it started uptown the next day. But I heard the people, and I knew that their conversation wasn't constructive. They weren't able to connect in a way that there would have been a dialogue. But they had the right to be out there. And so I decided, I won't go too much into the details of the night, but I decided that I had a role to play. And that picture represents just a moment in time. But what I like people to get out of it is that I'm willing to stand up when the times are most difficult, but stand up for both sides, all sides, to try to get it right. I was an intermediary that night and really every night since, a vessel that I think allows people to feel comfortable in their voice and be comfortable in expressing their voice and accepting other people's voices. Because it's not just about talking, sometimes it's about listening. But a few days after that picture was taken, I was arrested outside of Bank of America Stadium. I woke up the next day after that picture was taken, and friends and family from all over the country were saying, Braxton, you were showing us things that nobody else was showing us and that we needed to see. You were saying things that other people weren't saying. It needs to be said. We don't want you to get hurt. We don't want you to feel the same pain that you felt. After that, I was covered in tear gas. Tear gas doesn't wash off of you. I had a 10-month-old daughter. I felt like I was that older. 2 weeks. So if I was going to do that, if I was going to make that sacrifice, if I was going to make my family make that sacrifice, it had to be worth it. I had to know what I was, be sure that this is what I believe, but they also didn't want me to feel that same pain. So they said, you have to go out there and we'll get you a gas mask. So I was arrested about 6 days after that, 5-6 days after that, outside of Bank of America Stadium for possession of a gas mask with the intent to disobey the lawful order of a law enforcement officer in an extraordinary zone. Yeah, I was locked up for 10 hours on a third-degree misdemeanor violation of the city ordinance. And again, that thought ran through my mind. I felt like I was targeted. Pretty sure I was targeted. I thought of my family. It was the first time during that time where I was concerned for their well-being. So I got out. I was released on bail. I went and spoke at City Council for the first time the next day. But then I never went back out in the streets because I had to ask, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? What's my role here? I know I play a role. I was in a fog of war. Like I said, that was, when I see those montages, honestly, I'm still traumatized from that day. I haven't stopped going. I think part of that keep going is part of my self-care. But I had to get out, and I went back home for a couple of weeks, back to New York, where I was raised, where I knew that there would be no danger for me and my family. And I researched, I read about the American Revolution. I read about this great experiment called democracy, a representative government. Because I was calling for a change of the status quo. I and we, as you said, there were so many people out there that this killing of a man was just a spark on a bed of tinder that really awakened a lot of people to the effects of the systemic inequities. Don's right. So many times when I was stepped out there that night, there were more white faces than there were black and brown in total. But that wasn't told. There were people that, again, it was about Keith Lamont Scott, but it wasn't. It was people were asking what conditions would lead up to a Keith Lamont Scott being possible. What leads up to a Keith Lamont Scott happening, and the fear that the government will not give an appropriate response and an accountability. So I had questions. I had questions. What does this all mean, and what role do I play in it? And I came back to Charlotte, and I started asking people, there's something I'm supposed to do here, and I don't know totally what it is. And I was given, people are good. People are good. So many people open their doors and arms to me. Not a lot of people had answers, because I guess if we had all the answers to these questions, we wouldn't be here today trying to figure it out. We'd be chilling on this beautiful day, first week of March, getting ready for spring. But we figured that there were three legs that kind of held up this stool that's Braxton and what I'm supposed to be doing here. There was a citizen journalism aspect where I had to continue to show up to things, be present, and objectively disseminate facts so people could determine the truth as they saw it. Because when we saw it, we were able to see truths that we didn't expect to see, feel, or experience. And that's important. But of course, I did a lot of talking in between the moments that I was silent, and people found solidarity in what I was saying, and they gave me the privilege and responsibility to amplify their voices. So I became an activist. But I graduated from Davidson College, and I graduated with a degree in anthropology, and so I look at things through the cultural lens, I like to call it. And culture is one of those words that we use all the time, but who can define what it means? I like to define culture from my anthropological view of how we do what we do. And while this is good right here, we need to touch each other, county to county, organization to organization, individual to individual. We are a culture of laws and policy. And the way we really need to affect cultural change in this nation is through the halls of government, where we can affect laws and policy. And I think what we all agreed on, regardless of where we find ourselves on the political spectrum or economic spectrum or faith spectrum in Charlotte, is that during those days in September, we experienced a vast a vacuum of leadership in government amongst our elected and appointed officials. But I wasn't looking to run myself. I was looking to find new leaders and new ideas and push those folks forward. But the type of leadership, as I continue to go to these rooms and sit at these tables and try to figure out what we needed to do, it became clear that I was the leader, and some of the ideas that I had needed to be voiced at the table. So I had to take on another role. I had to become a candidate. I didn't decide till June of last year to run for office. I announced June 23rd. The primary was in September. But I also knew if I ran, it wasn't just to amplify one issue. That picture, like I said, is an inspirational picture. It's a good picture. It doesn't always initially help when you want to run for office. But knowing that, again, like I said, we knew that this was the background, this was who I was. We're still figuring this, everything, while I had different hats on, if I'm a journalist or an advocate, an advocate, it's still me, it's still my voice, it's just different roles. So I want to talk to the candidates right now. What we really had to figure out as I was putting my team together and getting the folks behind me was, what am I as a candidate? What do I believe in? I couldn't just go say, power to the people, follow Braxton, believe me, we can do this. This is messed up, the systemic inequities, and we have to disrupt the system. What does that mean? What does that mean? On top of that, I was criticizing a bunch of Democrats. Charlotte City Council was and still is 9-2 Democratic majority. But these were the same leaders that failed, in my opinion. George Washington warned, they wanted him to run forever. He could have been king of America, the first president, the first king. But he warned, in explaining his decision why not to run for a third term, is that we can't, I'll interpret it crudely, but party politics and religion are what we need to be most wary of as we move forward in this great experiment. So, like I said, I had to figure out what I wanted people to follow. Now, I'm a proud Democrat, always have been, and this is why I think I am, because over the past years, it's been tough, to be completely honest. What does it mean to be a Democrat? What do we stand for? What are our principles? And I had to think, what are my principles? And I'm a proud Democrat because I believe first and foremost in the equal protections, expanding the equal protections of rights under the law for all people. And I am not afraid to use the government to pull those levers. That's the first thing I think about when I approach an issue, is this equity lens. It's not that I don't think of free trade and taxes and corporate, health and small businesses. It's just that's not my primary thought. So I had to think about what does that mean in terms of my candidacy and what I want people to believe in. And so I worked really hard before I decided to run on my platform. What can I explain to you? Not like I'm doing right now, but what can I explain to you in 1 to 3 minutes? What could I consistently say that enveloped all these bigger things, these systemic inequities and disrupting institutions and doing government better in a different way? What about me as a Democrat was better or different than them as a Democrat? What did I see that they weren't seeing? And we came up with a very, I think, simple, ultimately, platform of a more equitable, accessible, and interconnected Charlotte. And what I was able to do with that platform was talk about anything and everywhere with anybody in my city. It wasn't something that just resonated with Democrats. It wasn't just something that resonated with young people. It wasn't something that just resonated with the activist groups. I was able to get the activists and the clergy. I was able to get labor and businessmen like Hugh McCall behind me. Because we were able to show how a more equitable Charlotte, a Charlotte where more people had ownership over their city and were able to benefit and benefit in the growth and expansion and be responsible for the shortcomings, made more sense. We're building better neighborhoods that were less segregated and had more people of different means living amongst each other in vicinity to where they worked and played. That transportation access and digital access and access to technology were so important in building a more equitable Charlotte, but also a Charlotte that will continue to grow and attract the type of business and investment that we need and want to be a 21st century city. You know, this was a message of interconnection that connected what was happening inside the halls of government to the folks on the outside that so direly want to be part of the solution and part of the process. It was an interconnection message that said, city, county, state, federal, y'all have to be working together for the good of us, because we don't have the time, patience, or resources for you to be messing around with those things. That interconnection that says what happens in Charlotte means something here up in Cabarrus County, or Wake County, or in Cincinnati, Ohio. That we have the same problems. Yes, there are urban-rural divides and party divides even, but we all love this place. We don't want to go nowhere else. We just want to figure out how to be happy, healthy, and safe in our homes. And the interconnection that these problems, these issues that we're equipped to deal with them. That we don't have to reinvent the wheel. That there are good people doing good things. If only we could give them a little more support. If we would only stop looking as a government at the usual suspects, you know, those platinum level sponsors. Let's hear the folks that are crying out literally. Let us help. These are our streets. We know what these streets need. Don't push us away. Don't beat us down. Push us forward. So that's what we did. Candidates, give your volunteers, give the people that want to help you something to talk about. Let them go to every door, and don't just say that you're a proud Democrat or that there's a blue wave coming. What do you stand for? You can't run on a whole party platform. You have to be able to relate your message in your voice. That's the most important thing. It's more important than yard signs, more important than palm cards, more important than you can show up to every event, but if you don't have something to say, we're going to fail, or we're going to just perpetuate the problems. Now, other piece of advice I'm going to say is something that, the dean talked about. I had an excellent team around me, but I think I had an excellent. What worked the best was I'm a bit of an out-the-box thinker, and I do things in a different way. And I don't like to think of myself as a politician. I want to be a leader in government. I think that's what we severely lack. I think you guys should be the politicians in my position now. That you come from your corners, your perspective, and it is your prerogative, to get those things that you need and want. And I'm supposed to listen to all of y'all and make the best decision based on that, not necessarily get you to believe what I believe. But, so you had the way I think, and the people that were working on my campaign were more traditional, campaign folks. Been doing it for years and some decades. But there's wisdom in that. You have to do the work. You have to do the work. You have to get that call time in. You gotta knock on the doors. You gotta go to the events. And when you get people on the phone, you gotta ask them. When they say no, it's all right. Ask the next question. He says no, it's all right. Follow up with the next question. Once they finally say, well, can you send an email? Give me some names of people I can call. You don't even have to put your name on it. You have to be persistent, and you can't take things personally. You just have to be willing to do the work. And I ask all of you, I'll finish up by asking all of you, please be willing to do the work. We're at a time where, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of how engaged you are or how apathetic you may be, we're not doing enough work to perpetuate this great experiment, to exhibit the philosophy of civic virtue. Thomas Jefferson posited that every republic before the United States of America failed. It's true. And it failed because the people lost their penchant for civic virtue, or the willingness to do the inconvenient or uncomfortable tasks for the greater good of the republic. And the greater good is to achieve arete, which is a Greek word that means excellence in all areas. That a republic needs to be excellent in all areas. It can't just have the strongest army, because it won't be able to feed its people. It can't just have the best agricultural system, because it will be invaded. It can't just focus on education, because who's going to do the work of building the buildings? You have to be excellent in all areas to be successful. And you imbalance yourself when you give up that civic virtue. The strength of the institutions, the centralized institutions, grow strong for the comfort and convenience. And that's where I think we are right now. Whether it be our criminal justice system, where certain folks don't want that to come over here. We don't want to deal with mental illness. We don't want to deal with racial problems. We don't deal with poverty. So we say, criminalize it. And you run into the prison industrial complex. How do you get it back? So we have to achieve arete. So we have to be intentional about protecting this and pushing our values forward, but your values, not just in institutions, values, because this is an institution as well. And we're under attack, internally, externally, but I think it's because we're all searching for this idea that the American dream is in this comfort, and achieving this comfort and convenience. 2 weeks ago, Robert Mueller set out an indictment about indicted 13 Russians for trying to disrupt our democracy. And one of them, they're doing it by using our rhetoric against us. They're weaponizing our very most closely held liberty of free speech, because we've polarized it so much. We don't do the work in analyzing or understanding how to debate and have views without being toxic. They held a rally a few months after the Charlotte uprising and after the election of 2016. I was there, I spoke, I went back, and after I saw the indictment, I went back and looked at my live stream of it. Again, it's good to have the facts, to go back and understand what is actually going on. And you saw that the tone was different. It was different. There were definitely people there that wanted to be destructive. I didn't allow that. We didn't allow it. There was a sort of vindication when I saw that indictment, because I knew as I looked through social media, especially since I've been elected, people are showing up at funny voices. They create a circular motion of agitation, and people are falling into it because we're not doing the work. We're not paying attention to what's happening right in front of us. We are not dealing with issues and coming up with solutions. We're just falling into the pools of rhetoric. And that's not what it's going to take. It's not what it's going to take to change up this election cycle. It's not what it's going to take to change our counties and our state. And it's definitely it's not what it's going to take to be successful in this great experiment of self-governance. So I thank you for having me. Sorry for rambling on. But we have to be doing the work, and I know that we're in a room of workers and folks, candidates. I know that you guys will do the work to empower and tool the folks in your party and the folks that are going to work to get you into these roles of representation. Do the work so they can go everywhere, so you can talk to everybody and you can talk about anything. And that's how we're going to be successful this year and moving forward. Thank you guys very much.